The most terrifying prisons in human history do not have iron bars. They do not require armed guards. They do not feature stone walls, and they cannot be escaped by digging a tunnel. The most inescapable, suffocating prisons are constructed entirely out of words. When we look at the tragedies of Middle-earth, we often focus on the physical destruction. We look at ruined cities, broken swords, and scorched earth. But the greatest horror J.R.R. Tolkien ever wrote was not a physical battlefield. It was the complete, agonizing, and terminal psychological destruction of a fundamentally good man. Today, we are examining the tragedy of Maedhros, the eldest son of Fëanor. We are going to look past the epic fantasy of the First Age, and we are going to dissect a clinical, devastating case of moral injury, the weaponization of loyalty, and the inescapable cognitive trap of a holy oath. To understand the absolute nightmare of Maedhros' existence, we must first recognize who he actually was. Maedhros was not a villain. Among the 7 sons of Fëanor, he was the anomaly. He was naturally diplomatic, deeply compassionate, and possessed a strong, inherent moral compass. He valued friendship and unity over pride. Under normal circumstances, he would have been one of the greatest and most beloved kings of the elven race, but his moral compass was violently hijacked by the fanaticism of his father. When Fëanor stood in the darkness of Valinor and forced his sons to swear the oath, he did not just make them promise to retrieve the stolen Silmarils, he installed a piece of psychological malware into their minds. The Oath of Fëanor was an absolute binary code. It dictated that they must pursue anyone, Vala, demon, elf, or man, who held a Silmaril, and if they failed, they called upon the everlasting darkness to consume their souls. It allowed for no context, no mercy, no diplomacy, and no change of heart. If you find this kind of uncompromising, clinical deconstruction of mythology shifting your perspective, take a brief moment to subscribe. We do not just recite the lore on this channel, we dissect the psychological architecture of the stories you love. The tragedy begins with the illusion of freedom. Early in the First Age, Maedhros is captured by Morgoth and hung by his right wrist from the freezing, sheer cliffs of Thangorodrim. For decades, he is subjected to unimaginable physical torture. When his cousin Fingon finally scales the mountain to rescue him, Maedhros begs to be killed. Fingon refuses, cuts off Maedhros' right hand, and brings him home. Audiences read this and cheer for the rescue. They see Maedhros recovering, becoming a brilliant military commander, and even peacefully giving up his legitimate claim to the High Kingship to prevent a civil war among his people. We look at him and think he is free, but the physical rescue was completely meaningless. His body was unchained from the mountain, but his mind was irrevocably shackled to the dark. Maedhros had lost his right hand, but that was the least of his amputations. He had already lost his free will. For centuries, Maedhros tries to be a good man. He builds alliances. He fights the dark forces of Morgoth. He acts with honor and dignity. But the oath is always there, running quietly in the background of his consciousness like a terminal virus, waiting for the trigger. That trigger is pulled when the Silmarils resurface among their own allies. And this is where we witness the clinical onset of moral injury. Moral injury is a psychological trauma that occurs when an individual is forced to perform, witness, or fail to prevent acts that transgress their own deeply held moral beliefs. It is the shattering of the soul from the inside out. When the sons of Fëanor realize that the elven kingdom of Doriath holds a Silmaril, the binary code of the oath activates. The software demands compliance. Maedhros does not want to attack his own kin. The texts explicitly state that he was sickened by the prospect. He tries to negotiate, he sends letters, he pleads, but when diplomacy fails, the psychological trap slams shut. If he does not attack, he is damned to eternal darkness by his own spoken word. So this good, diplomatic, honorable man picks up his sword and marches his army into Doriath, and later to the havens of Sirion, to slaughter his own people. He kills refugees, he kills innocents, he watches his brothers die in the chaos, and he does this knowing, with absolute intellectual clarity, that it is evil. This is the ultimate horror of radicalization and cult psychology. He is fully aware of his own damnation, but he cannot stop his own hands from shedding blood. The cognitive dissonance reaches an agonizing peak at the havens of Sirion. During the massacre, 2 young half-elven children, Elrond and Elros, are taken captive. The oath demands ruthlessness, and his surviving brothers are consumed by bloodlust. But Maedhros does something that breaks the hearts of readers. He does not kill the children. He takes them in. He protects them. He raises them with genuine, profound love and care. Why? because raising those children was the last desperate act of his buried core self. It was the good Maedhros screaming into the void, trying to prove to himself that he was still a person, that he was still capable of love, even as his hands were soaked in the blood of their parents. He was clinging to Elrond and Elros as a psychological lifeline, trying to keep his soul from completely drowning in the dark. But acts of kindness cannot rewrite the binary code of the Oath. The weight of his actions begins to crush him. He falls victim to the most lethal psychological trap known to mankind, the sunk cost fallacy. By the end of the First Age, the host of the Valar descends. Morgoth is defeated, and the last two Silmarils are reclaimed by the divine authorities. Maedhros and his only surviving brother Maglor are ordered to surrender. Maglor, exhausted and broken, pleads with Maedhros to stop. Maglor says, "The oath says not that we may not bide our time. If we break it, or do not fulfill it, what matter? We are damned either way. Let us submit, and perhaps we will find mercy." But Maedhros's mind has lost all elasticity. Decades of extreme moral injury have destroyed his capacity to believe in hope or forgiveness. Paranoia has completely erased his reality. Maedhros replies with cold, terrifying logic. He argues that if they submit to the Valar, and the Valar do not forgive them, they will not even have the power to fight back. The oath will drag them to the everlasting darkness, and they will have failed their father. Maedhros convinces Maglor to commit one final suicidal act of treason. They infiltrate the camp of the Divine Army, they murder the guards, they break into the heavily guarded tent, and finally, after centuries of torture, massacres, and the loss of their entire family, they lay their hands on the Silmarils. And this is the moment the universe delivers its final, objective judgment. When Maedhros touches the holy jewel, it does not glow for him. It burns. The pure, unsullied light of the Silmaril physically scorches his flesh, causing him unbearable, blinding agony. This is not just a magical defense mechanism. This is a cosmic diagnostic tool. The stone is rejecting him. For centuries, Maedhros had told himself that all the atrocities, all the dead children, and all the slaughtered kin were a necessary evil to fulfill a sacred duty. But the burning jewel provides immediate, undeniable proof that he is corrupt. He is not a holy crusader, he is a monster. He no longer has the right to hold the very thing he destroyed his entire species to obtain. The burning of his hand is the realization that his entire life, his entire suffering, was for absolutely nothing. The cognitive dissonance peaks, the system crashes. He stands there, holding a stone that is actively incinerating him. He cannot throw the stone away, because the psychological malware of the oath forbids him from abandoning it. But he cannot hold the stone, because the moral universe is physically rejecting him. The equation cannot be solved. He is caught in a paradox of terminal despair. Maedhros does not go mad in his final moments. His suicide is not a frantic act of chaos. It is a clinical, calculated system shutdown. He realizes that the fire of the oath inside his mind and the fire of the Silmaril in his hand will never extinguish. There is no therapy for this. There is no redemption. There is no peace to be found among the living. And so, carrying the holy jewel that destroyed his family, Maedhros walks to a gaping volcanic chasm in the earth. He does not hesitate. He casts himself and the Silmaril into the roaring, apocalyptic magma below. The tragedy of Maedhros is a devastating reminder that the most dangerous weapons in the world are not forged from steel. They are forged from fanaticism, blind loyalty, and absolute ideologies. Fëanor did not just curse his enemies, he psychologically chained his own children to a burning wheel and watched them spin into oblivion. Maedhros was a good man, trapped in an evil code. He survived the torture of a dark god. He survived centuries of apocalyptic war, but he could not survive the prison of his own mind. In the end, the only way to break the chains of the oath was to let the fire of the earth consume the fire in his soul.